This yarn, I don't like it. Hi everyone, it's Carol. Welcome back to Pattern Encyclopedia, where we talk about all things knitting and sometimes crochet. So today I decided to film a video that I wish was around when I first started knitting, and that is my favorite and least favorite craft store yarns. When you're first starting knitting or crochet especially, you don't want to spend a lot of money on yarn. You're kind of just experimenting and getting the feel for the craft before you're starting to make kind of more complicated works. And so when I first started knitting, the craft store was my best friend. And I still use the craft store for yarn, mainly because it is more affordable than alternatives. There are a lot of content creators and designers out there who use really expensive yarn, and I feel like that makes knitting and crochet a little bit inaccessible to everyone who wants to do it. So if you're interested in staying more budget friendly with knitting and crochet, or if you just want to know what great yarns are out there at your craft stores, this video is definitely for you. Before I jump in, I did just want to say that these are all my opinions. A lot of people might really like some of the yarns that I dislike, or vice versa, and I just wanted to say we all have had different experiences with yarn, and these are just some of mine. So I'm going to start from my least favorite yarns and work up to my most favorite yarns. So starting at number 11, we have the Lion brand Truboo yarn. And this is a 100% bamboo yarn. I only ever used this yarn for one project and one project only, and that was a knit scrunchie. And I hated this yarn. The strands would come apart so easily that when I was knitting, I would split the yarn constantly. And the finish on the yarn isn't my favorite either. It's got kind of a sheen to it, so it's a bit shiny, and I prefer more of a matte finish in my yarns. It's also not very structurally sound, if that makes sense, so it doesn't really seem like the type of yarn that will last a long time. So coming in at number 10 is the Caron Simply Soft yarn. This is a 100% acrylic yarn. I feel like this might be an unpopular opinion. I'm not sure, but this yarn, I don't like it. So the main reason I don't love this yarn is because it's not very durable. I use this yarn to knit my dad some golf club covers for his golf clubs, which the only purpose they serve is covering the club, and he'll pull it off and put it back on when he's done. That's it. And the golf club covers are already really worn out after less than a year of him using them. So the other thing I dislike about this yarn is, again, it has that sort of shiny finish that I just don't love in my yarn, and that's a personal preference. The sheen just isn't for me. So finally, this yarn, in addition to being not very durable, is also super flexible. And that can be good or bad depending on how you look at it. If you're wanting something that's more structured, like a clothing item, your clothing item is just going to end up being sort of floppy and flimsy, which I just don't love. The one thing that I have enjoyed making with this yarn is beanies. So if there's any purpose for the Caron Simply Soft yarn in my eyes, it is to make beanies. So here's the beanie that I've made, and I'll probably make more just because I have some yarn left over from previous projects. But I like my beanies to be stretchy, and so the Caron Simply Soft does serve its purpose there, and it does do a decent job at making a nice beanie. But that is probably the only thing that I would use this yarn for. So coming in next at number 9 is the Big Twist Value Worsted Weight yarn. This is another 100% acrylic yarn. This comes in at number 9 just because there's nothing particularly special about it. I don't have any huge complaints, but I also don't have any particular reason to love this yarn. It's really just an average yarn. I will say it's not great for if you want something that's more structured, like a clothing item. Again, this yarn is sort of more flimsy and malleable, similar to the Caron Simply Soft. I do think that this would make a good cardigan or sweater, which I don't think that of the Caron Simply Soft. So if you're balling on a budget and you want to try the Big Twist Value worsted weight yarn, I would say it's a decent option for something like a cardigan or a sweater. It's just not going to give you a ton of structure. So the next yarn that comes in at number 8 on my list is actually going to surprise some people, and it is the Red Heart Super Saver yarn. This is another 100% acrylic yarn. So I've listed this higher than the others for one reason only, and that is that this yarn is perfect for more structured knits. So I would never use this yarn for a sweater or a cardigan or a shirt. Nothing that's going to be in contact with my body directly, just because it is sort of scratchy and just not high quality. But I love this yarn for accessories because it has more structure and is less malleable. That means that whatever you make with it is going to similarly have a bit more structure. So I've made bucket hats with it that have turned out really nice, and I've also made bags with it, which have turned out really nice. So anything that you're looking for a more structured yarn that isn't going to be in close contact with your body, this is a perfect choice. You don't have to buy something expensive for that. And I will also say they have a lot of color options. This is one of the yarns that has more color options, and so that is also really useful as well. So next up on my list, coming in at number 7, is the Lion Brand Comfy Cotton Blend. I have a little cake of it here, so I'll kind of try to show it off a little. This is actually a 50% cotton, 50% polyester blend, and it's a really good option if you want a less scratchy cotton item and you want to purchase something from the craft store to make that. So for example, I used this yarn for a summer shirt. I made a t-shirt with it. There were some knots throughout, which was really frustrating because I kind of had to choose between keeping the knot in my work or cutting the yarn and then reattaching it. So either way, there was kind of this unwanted section to my shirt that just didn't end up looking that great. My other complaint with this yarn is that it is a bit heavy. I used it for a t-shirt, but honestly, the t-shirt, it gets a little bit too warm in the summertime. So I think this would be a better option for something like a lightweight cardigan. I also wanted to mention that after a few washes, it kind of lost the softness to it. So that's another thing to keep in mind if you have more sensitive skin. So next up on my list is another Big Twist yarn, but this is the Big Twist Heather yarn. The Big Twist Heather is another 100% acrylic yarn. My biggest complaint with this one is that it only comes in 3 colors. So that's unfortunate because I love this yarn. I used it for a sweater for my dad, and working it up, it just felt so nice, and the finished result is really, really stunning. My dad has been wearing the sweater pretty non-stop since I knit it, and it still is in really good condition. I really love this yarn for a sweater or a cardigan. Alright, so next up on my list is the Caron 1 pound yarn. And when you buy it, it's a little bit larger than this. I just have worked through it already a bit. But this yarn is really nice. I've used it for a blanket. I've used it for sweaters as well. I will say that if you dry your sweater, it does lose a bit of its structure after a time. And so I would suggest that if you do choose this option for a sweater, that you lay it flat to dry. The thing I love most about this yarn is the texture. So it has a matte finish, and the texture is so nice. Like, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. So for a 100% acrylic yarn, this one is very structured, similar to the Super Saver yarn, but it is somehow also very soft. So the reason that I've put this a little higher on the list is because it is both structured and soft, which is something that I am always looking for in a yarn. Overall, I think this yarn is a really great option for a blanket, a sweater, cardigan, anything that's a little bit heavier. So my second favorite yarn that I've found at the craft store is this yarn, and it is the Wool Like Yarn by Loops and Threads. This yarn is 85% acrylic, 15% nylon, and it has just a very lovely finish. So it does have a bit of a sheen, but it doesn't bother me for some reason compared to other yarns that have a sheen. It's also insanely soft. Like, this is one of the softest yarns that I found at the craft store. Definitely softer than Caron Simply Soft, okay? And for those of you who didn't see my first video, I went through a scrunchie knitting obsession where I was just constantly knitting scrunchies in different colors. And this yarn, the reason that I loved it so much was because it was really soft and they had a lot of colors. So I have really sad news, and that is that there are a lot of colors that it seems as though have been discontinued. So I went to Michael's website, which is where I bought this yarn, and I wasn't able to find some of my favorite colors. So that is a big bummer, but this yarn is still really, really great. I've knit socks with it, and they wear really well. I put them through the wash and the dryer, and they're still in really good condition. And like I said, I've knit scrunchies as well. I have so many colors of this yarn and so much left that I have started trying to work through it a bit more. I have a current work in progress that is a beanie with this yarn, and I have to say it is turning out really, really nicely. If you're looking to make a beanie with some fingering weight yarn, this stuff is pure gold. I just don't have enough good things to say about this yarn. I wish they were still making all of the colors of it. Hopefully they'll bring some back. Fingers crossed. So I'm really excited to tell you guys about my new favorite yarn, which actually has been a recent addition to my local craft store, and that is the Lion Brand 100% recycled respun polyester yarn. So like the name suggests, this is a 100% recycled polyester yarn. So what I love about this yarn is that it feels so high quality, but the reason I think that they're able to sell it at a craft store price is because it is recycled polyester. So I'll say it is a bit scratchier than a typical craft store yarn, but not in a way that is extremely uncomfortable or anything like that. I love this yarn because it's lightweight, it's comfortable on my skin, and they have really beautiful colors. My only complaint about this yarn is that there aren't more colors offered. I think right now they have around 8 or 10 colors, which is just not enough. So I had been on the search for a good craft store yarn to use for summer knits, and I just wasn't finding anything. You know, mostly what you find at a craft store is acrylic yarns, which aren't great for summer because it gets really hot. But this 100% recycled polyester yarn does the trick. I don't know what it is about it, but it is phenomenal. Overall, I think this yarn is perfect for a knit t-shirt or cardigan like the one that I'm wearing right now. Anything that is maybe like short sleeved or even a tank top, anything that you're looking to try for summer, I think this yarn is at least worth a shot. And not to mention that it's sustainable because it's 100% recycled polyester. So that's just an added bonus, and I love this yarn. So those were my least favorite to most favorite yarns that I've tried from the craft store. Hopefully this is helpful to some of you who are looking to find affordable yarn that is also really high quality. Definitely let me know if you end up trying any of these yarns and what your thoughts are. If you disagree with what I said, or if you agree with any of what I said, I definitely want to hear from you guys. Leave a comment below with what your favorite craft store yarns are, and I'll be sure to give them a try as well. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, consider giving a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. I'll talk to you all in the next one. Bye!